Shu, one of the 6 Nanto masters, practitioner of Nanto Hakuroken, born under the star of benevolence. He was a selfless warrior, a protector of the pure and innocent. Long ago, he had sacrificed his own eyes in order to save a young Kenshiro's life. Now he led the resistance against the Holy Emperor. But both Shu and Sauser were fellow Nanto masters. And Shu's skills were useless against Sauser's overwhelming might. With the Nanto order in disarray, it fell to the Hokuto to set things right. And so Kenshiro moved to halt Sauser's advances. There he would discover the reason that Rao had feared Sauser so much.
Ken, unless you defeat the Holy Emperor, this bloodshed will continue forever.
The Holy Emperor. Sauser.
Chapter 10. The Nanto Emperor.
Any who stand in my way shall feel the fury of my fists. The Holy Imperial Army's atrocities can go on no longer.
Welcome to the second act of the Sauser's an Asshole trilogy. He gets the most levels dedicated to him, but that's okay because he has one of my favorite boss battles in the game. His levels themselves aren't that bad either. You heard last time something about a Holy Cross mausoleum being built. And we haven't seen that yet, but we're in Sauser's Empire now, so we're bound to eventually, right? Well, kind of. After we come up here, we won't see the mausoleum itself, but we'll see construction equipment that's being used to build it. There's a giant crane, and if we look down a little bit, we can see some of the blocks being used down there. So that's kind of a neat detail, I feel. It's not super important, but you can easily miss it, so it's good that they put it there at all. They also introduced some more new physics objects in this level, such as paneling that's being used to build the mausoleum, and other types of construction equipment and such that you can hurl enemies into. And look, our good friend the boulder-splitting wave is back. I was using him to snipe that guy on a motorcycle, because he's a pain otherwise.
Life is a privilege.
There are actually a few important reasons that we have the boulder-splitting wave with us this time, but you'll see those when we get there. All you need to know right now is that it's back, and you should be very excited about that, because it's awesome. Here's another guy on a motorcycle. Thankfully, he tends to act like a dumbass, and he can't maneuver around the sandbags. So he's gone already. This fight isn't exactly the most thrilling in the entire game, but at least they give you a whole ton of stuff to play with while you're at it. Like this explosive barrel, and the other 6 or so explosive barrels that were over by the construction equipment. So after we defeat those few remaining guys, we start to head uphill, where we see a few enemies just kinda hanging out up there and not doing very much. I wonder what's up with that.
It's Kenshiro! We'll never take him! Run!
You have to take these messengers out super quickly. Their destination is right around that corner. And if you don't stop them before they get there, then you lose access to one of the extra areas. Fortunately, to stop them, all you have to do is hit a single one of them. And that's what our boulder-splitting wave is for. It's very difficult to catch up to them with our feet, but we can sure as hell shoot a giant wave of energy at them. After we hit one of them, the rest will just stop, so we can take our sweet time taking everyone out. What precisely happens if the messengers get there before you do is that a commander appears, and the door that they were headed towards stays locked forever. So you can't go see what's behind it, which is bad, because of course we want to see what's behind it. It's probably cool stuff. Or it's more people to rescue, but I think that falls under the umbrella of cool stuff. Right over here is the last messenger we need to take down. He was just standing there waiting for us, which is very polite of him. If I were him, I might try to do something like, I don't know, flee in fear. But it's good to know that he has some manners. Alright, let's go and see what's behind that special gate that we weren't supposed to see.
You dare to resist the Holy Emperor Salzer? You will be annihilated!
It was, in fact, an accident that I used the steel shredding grip right there. But that's okay, I'm sure we'll be able to take these guys out anyway. Trying to attack fleeing messengers, I think, is something exclusive to this level in the game, from what I remember. So that gives the level some unique flavor, but so does what happens near the very end of it. All of these giant breaks you're seeing around us, they are breakable, and we can throw the enemies into them. And it's really satisfying. Speaking of which, this has been a long time coming, but I'm sure you noticed that some attacks are more likely to hit enemies forward than others. For example, our area attack doesn't hit enemies forward for shit. And when we slam an enemy into the ground, they create a massive shockwave, but they barely move themselves. Alright, that's one group of villagers rescued, and they all survived this time, unlike that one time with the motorcycles where most of them died. Oh no, it appears that I may have spoken too soon. Except not really. And sir, I believe that you had the wrong choice of words there. You're not supposed to say, I'm going to kill you. You're supposed to say, oh god, please do not kill me. It is a very subtle difference, but adding the oh god helps a lot.
Finally, we can return to the village. Thank you.
If I could just find something to break down that wall.
This area has three things: a lot of snipers, a lot of barrels, and a lot of spears. Using the barrels or spears is likely to get you shot at. So what we want to do is stand right next to the snipers and use our boulder splitting wave, which, as was covered previously, reaches up very high. After we manage to cut through the snipers with our boulder splitting wave, the rest of them will drop down and fight us hand to hand because they're stupid like that. And this is the best strategy I could think of. We don't put ourselves at risk of being shot, and the rest of them come down here where they're much easier to hit. We also cannot break down the gate using anything but the steel beams. The explosive barrels in our fists won't do it. It has to be the steel beams. The wall also comes in two parts. There are 3 metal gates, and then there's the wall itself that needs destroyed. The individual metal gates only need to be hit once with the steel beams, but the wall takes many hits.
Make way for the Holy Emperor! Any impurities will be swiftly disinfected.
You're right. There's some serious disinfecting needed here.
This is the Protect the Villager mission that I am the most fond of. It also introduces a new enemy type, these guys with the flamethrowers, who exist solely to stunlock you. And they are very good at it. They don't deal very much damage on their own, but they do hurt the villagers a lot, and when they're part of a larger group of enemies, they become a real problem. There's 2 main groups of enemies that spawn and some archers. The archers are the real danger because they will completely obliterate the villagers. Thankfully, they always tend to huddle together, so it's easy enough to say, do this. We are capable of picking up and throwing the guys with the flamethrowers, but unfortunately they don't explode when we kick them. That's a real shame. It would be a really cute detail if they exploded the same way as an explosive barrel would. Did you just use that man as a baseball? That's not okay. After we quickly defeat these next 5 enemies, the real show starts. That was close. This explosive barrel should get rid of the rest of them. And now the second wave of enemies appears. This one has a commander and some guys on motorcycles. The guys on motorcycles, of course, are the big deal. We can take out most of the normal enemies immediately with an explosive barrel and a well-timed awakening of the senses. But after that, we need to quickly look around and find the motorcycle enemies, because just a couple hits from them and the villagers are gone. The commander, not a big deal. We still have our hyper signature move left after all. It was a bad idea to use softness ripping slash right there, but I was hoping that the remaining motorcycle enemy would run into me while I was using it and would explode, but it didn't work out that way, and instead we lost a villager. Or we're about to, rather. But if we can get this guy... Yeah, hey, what do you know? We actually saved them all. Assuming we can destroy the commander. But that really shouldn't be a problem. We can use our kick, which acts as a projectile. You might not have known that, but it does. It shoots a stream of aura right out the tip, and that part doesn't count as part of us, so we can hit the commander with it. Disinfection successful. We didn't even use any Febreze. Please don't use the Febreze to disinfect things, that's not what it's for. Up next is a mechanic that we're already familiar with, but this time it's a bit easier. There's a big extended space of nothing, and we see some enemies just kinda hanging out not doing anything. Seem familiar?
Kenchiro's here! Hurry! We have to tell Lord Salzer!
Just like last time, we have to catch these guys before they reach their destination. But this time the destination is much, much further away, and one of them is very fat and slow. Moves like a boulder with legs. As was already said, we only need to hit one of them to make them stop. So we're good now. That fat guy just turned right around. Now, they expected you to take longer to catch them, I assume, because this area up here is rather empty except for these guys. There's a few groups of enemies scattered here and there, but nothing to accommodate the fact that this area is enormous. So after you see me wreck this commander, I'm gonna skip to when we clean up the area, because it's just around 1 minute to 2 minutes of me methodically punching everybody, since there's not much here. Here's a platforming area, very similar to the one from, where was it, Amiibo's stage? It's a bit of a maze, but not that much. We can't progress straight forward, so we simply have to break a barricade and go around. Areas like this have the unfortunate side effect of collecting a lot of enemies in places where it's difficult to hit them all at once, because of the varying degrees of platforms. Some of them are on low ground, some of them are on high ground. And you can't hit them all in one spot. Thankfully, this area gives you breaks in between the platforming, like this large area. So we can wait for the enemies to get a bit closer, taunt them, and then take them all out while they're down here. It works a lot better than trying to defeat them while they're up there on the platforms, trust me. It takes much longer that way. I had previously had a lot of issues with this area because I was too dumb to even try this, but it works much better. In order to progress, we need to move another block, and it hasn't been too long since we've seen one this time. I believe the last time was when Ray died. That's kind of a weird memory to associate with that. That time that Ray died, and also there was a movable block. Unfortunately, unlike last time where we were able to shrug the enemies off, this time they will actually interrupt us while we're in the middle of moving this block. And we can't start moving the block again while we're... Oh, I'm stuck. And we can't start moving the block again while we're fighting them because it will automatically try and pick up the enemies instead. That's not so bad though, it's not like there's a lot of them. And we can just use Kentro's flying kick to get to the platform without pushing the block all the way over. Enemies do actively try to jump around obstacles. They're capable of platforming just like you are. But sometimes instead of jumping around obstacles, they jump on top of them. Like you saw one of them land on top of this box earlier. There's an asshole up here on this platform with a flamethrower, and if he hits you while you're jumping, you'll collapse and, well, fall back down the platform. But we won't worry about that too much. Hey, here's another asshole with a flamethrower. He's by himself, though. So we can fuck with him. I believe we've reached the end of the platforming section. I wanted to get those hidden skill points first, though. But yes, I think we're at the end of the platforming section. And there's one last big area at the end. So we can collect everyone together again. So I want to count real quick. I haven't done this before, but I want to count the various attractions this stage had so far. In the opening area, there wasn't much to speak of, but then we found some retreating enemies, which was a new mechanic. And we actually had to destroy them very quickly to get to a new area. After that, there were some guys sniping at us, which was very rude. And we used our boulder splitting wave to get rid of them before they had the chance to even shoot at us. Then there was my favorite Defend the Villagers mission, which contained a new enemy type. After that, there were more retreating enemies, this time in a much different context and in a different group. And then there was this platforming section. So as I said way back, and I think it might have been stage 2 even, but maybe not that far back, this game has a lot of individual moments in the level design that make it more memorable than you would expect from a Dynasty Warriors title. And I like that about it. It feels more like a character action game than just an ordinary beat-em-up or an ordinary Dynasty Warriors game. That guy's head got beat with this pole. There's also that, you get to beat guys in the head with poles a lot.
Make way! The Holy Emperor is past!
We have yet another time limit, but the time limit isn't that much of a worry. The area we fight these guys in, though, I like it a lot. It makes the end of the stage really memorable. It's this huge closed-in roadway with a lot of turns, and each turn has a new group of enemies at the end of it. There's also a whole ton of physics objects at the sides, and I think it's worth noting that in general this place looks different than anywhere we visited before. It's much sandier. Lots of bricks everywhere. The game, from here on out, starts to steadily include more and more physics objects than before. But we'll see what I mean by that later in the next stage, I believe. I believe that's where it's the best to demonstrate it. I think the reason they include more and more physics objects is because they realize that you would have more than one of your mastery gauge, that orange thing next to our health bar. We have 2 mastery gauges right now, which is why we can use the Compassionate Flying Slash instead of just the Fist of Penitence. And by far the easiest way to fill up the mastery gauges is with smash bonuses. One smash bonus fills up the first gauge really quickly, but it takes 2 or 3 to fill up the second one, which is what we need to do to use our Compassionate Flying Slash. There are a couple of enemies with flamethrowers in between every notable group of enemies. I don't think they really count toward the total. Yeah, they don't seem to. They're just there to be an inconvenience, really. An inconvenience between you and the physics objects, of which there are many, in case that wasn't clear. After all of this is said and done, we finally get to face down with Sauzer. This boss fight isn't one of my favorites, but the next one will be. But it's necessary to fight this one for the next one to have the same impact. You may have noticed that they spell Sauzer's name with a TH. Sauzer's name is spelled differently in a lot of different media, so I don't know which spelling is the right one. Everyone also seems to spell Yuda's name differently. That was very probably the best use of boulder splitting wave that we're going to see in the entire game. It was incredibly satisfying to pull off. And I believe that we're almost done with this huge mass of enemies.
I'm not letting you take one step closer to Lord Sauser. This'll be your graveyard.
You know, I've heard exactly that line before, but the guy had a slightly different voice. And that guy's dead now, so you might want to rethink this a little bit. Or not, you know, it could be time to die. It's up to you. Oh, too late. Choice's time is over.
I can feel it! Hookto! Fujo mo shoha! There's no need to dirty the Emperor's hands with this. We'll take care of it ourselves.
This is the arena that we're going to fight Sauser in, so we do not want to pick up any of the items or crack open any of the boxes here. We're going to need those for the fight.
You seriously think you could stop us?
You know, yes, I do. I do think I can stop you. You guys suck at this. You're really bad. Maybe that's not fair. Maybe they don't suck at it. Maybe they were like the strongest fighters in their village, and they think they're hot shit, but they just never fought like a superhero before. They all have incredibly interesting and deep backstories about how they got to be so strong, and then Kintro just shows up and kills them in a matter of seconds. That seems about right. I'm going to assume that that's what they were going for instead. It adds a lot more irony to these fights.
You're all grown up, I see.
Your march to glory ends right here.
I know only one way. Forward to victory.
And after Sauser throws his invisible cape, it's on. Sauser is a bit of an interesting boss. He doesn't block very much. He may actually be the boss that blocks the least in the entire game, and there's an important reason for this, but we'll find out what it is later. Right now, all you need to know is that the Compassionate Flying Slash deals a lot of damage, even to bosses, as you just witnessed. And Sauser is very weak to our area attack. Specifically that little jab with our knee that we do. Like all of the other Nanto users, it's possible to interrupt some of his combos with the L1 button. But if he gets you in the air, then you're just fucked. That may not have seemed like a lot of damage, but you have to keep in mind, if he does just 4 more of those, then we're done, and he's not even in his second phase yet. He is thankfully a bit slower than Shu, so if we manage to hit him from behind, that's a good. There, I'm just gonna stick with that, it's a good.
My style has no need for defense.
Is he talking about his fashion style? Because if so, I agree. He has no need for defense at all. He can just go around offending people all day with his fashion. He has this one projectile that he really likes, that one. Whenever we get close to him, he uses it to push us back. Or that. Thankfully, we managed to break out of it using the good old boulder splitting wave, but that would have really hurt otherwise. His health is already almost full again. It is very difficult to find an opening when you're fighting Sauser. You have to turn the tide of the battle in your favor and keep it that way. Because if he's allowed to start going on the offensive, then he never really lets up, and if you try to get close to him after he pushes you back, he'll always push you away again. Thankfully, with our new 4 Spirit Reserve units up there, we were able to use the Steel Shredding Grip on him twice. And now twice more. Or you know what, this second time, let's go for the good old Fist of Penitence. That never goes wrong. He's almost done here anyway, so it should finish him off. He activated his Spirit Aura too, but we can still get him. Oh, never mind. He just backflipped right out of it, and that's why the Fist of Penitence is a bad move to use on Sauser.
You have certainly grown stronger, it's true. You're finally starting to live up to the potential Rao saw in you.
You should know, I have pressed your Jinju Kyoku. It is by far the most destructive of all the vital points in the body. You're going to be dead in 3 seconds.
Am I? 3 seconds? Then let's count them together, shall we? 1, 2, 3. This body has always been that of the one true Emperor. No mere mortal could ever hope to defeat me.
Impossible. I know I pressed his point.
You may have been able to best me in battle. However, you have been bested by the Imperial blood that flows in these veins!